There comes a morning when you open your eyes, and the spark that used to drive you is simply gone. You make your coffee. You check your phone. You stare at the to-do list that once felt like a ladder to the sky, and now it's just ink on paper. No urgency. No fire. No voice in your head yelling, "Go!" And somewhere deep inside, you panic. Because you've been told your whole life that motivation is the engine. That without it, you are broken. A failure. A person falling behind. But here's the question nobody asks. What if your mind isn't shutting down? What if it's clearing the stage? Making space for something you've never felt before? Something real? Psychologists call it a motivation reset. It's not burnout. It's not laziness. It's your brain refusing to run on the same fuel it used to. Let me explain. According to self-determination theory in psychology, we're driven by two main forces: extrinsic motivation, chasing rewards, praise, money, status. Intrinsic motivation, driven by curiosity, meaning, personal growth. Most of us live on the first one. We learn it in school. We're graded, ranked, measured, and taught to see life as a scoreboard. It works for a while. Your brain gets little dopamine hits when you win. But here's the trick neuroscience reveals. Your brain also learns when the reward stops being worth the effort. This is called the dopamine prediction error. If the prize you're chasing doesn't feel new or meaningful anymore, your brain lowers the signal. The fire fades. Not because you're lazy, but because your mind is whispering, "This is not it. Keep looking." And here's the part we never admit in American culture. Sometimes, losing motivation is not the end of the road. It's a redirection. Mark was a runner. Not just on weekends. Not just for fitness. Running was his identity. Every morning before sunrise, he hit the track. He wasn't chasing medals. He was chasing the feeling. The rhythm. The proof that he was alive. Then, one day, a sharp pain in his knee stopped him mid-stride. The doctor's words felt like a sentence. "You need at least a year off." At first, Mark tried to fight it. He swam. He cycled. He did anything to keep moving. But eventually, he woke up one morning and didn't want to train at all. Not even a little. That terrified him. If he wasn't Mark the runner, then who was he? Months passed. The absence of running wasn't just physical, it was emotional. Like a silent winter. But in that stillness, Mark started to notice things he'd ignored for years. Conversations with friends that didn't revolve around times or distances. Mornings spent reading instead of sweating. And eventually, a quiet realization. He had been running not out of love, but out of fear. Fear of slowing down. Fear of being forgotten. When the fear dissolved, so did the need to run every day. And when he finally laced up his shoes again, it wasn't to prove anything. It was to feel the wind. To hear his own breath. To remember what joy sounded like. In America, we worship the grind. We glorify the person who wakes up at 4 a.m., who never skips a day, who keeps crushing it while everyone else sleeps. We post quotes that say, "While you rest, someone else is working." But here's the hidden truth psychologists have been telling us for decades. Human motivation is cyclical, not constant. Your brain and body are not machines. They follow ultradian rhythms, 90-minute cycles of energy and focus. Zoom out far enough, and you'll see it in months and years too. Times of sprint and times of recovery. Ignore those cycles, and you don't become stronger, you just become empty. We've confused rest with weakness, when in fact, it's the soil where your next season of growth is planted. Psychologists call it incubation. It's the stage between effort and breakthrough. When you step back from a problem, not because you've given up, but because your mind needs to reorganize the puzzle. It's the reason creative ideas hit you in the shower, or on a walk, or while staring out the window doing nothing. In neuroscience terms, your brain is switching from the task-positive network to the default mode network, a resting state where hidden connections start to form. So when motivation fades, it's not always sabotage. Sometimes it's your brain, upgrading the software. Angela was a tech CEO in San Francisco. Her company had just closed a $20 million funding round. On paper, she was unstoppable. But inside, she was a ghost. Emails piled up. Meetings blurred together. Every win felt smaller than the last. One morning, instead of heading to the office, she drove 3 hours north and checked into a cabin with no Wi-Fi. She stayed for 40 days. Her board called it irresponsible. Her competitors called it weak. But in that cabin, Angela began to remember why she started. Not for the exit, not for the press, but because she wanted to build something beautiful. When she returned, she killed half the projects on the roadmap. The company shrank, but the vision sharpened. And here's the twist. 2 years later, that smaller company was worth more than ever. Because the work meant something again. You've been told that motivation comes from discipline. And yes, discipline matters. But meaning is the nuclear fuel. In brain scans, when people work on something deeply meaningful to them, the ventral striatum lights up, the same reward center triggered by falling in love. That's why soldiers will run into danger for their comrades. Why parents will stay up all night for their child. Why artists will create even when no one is watching. If your fire is gone, ask yourself, is what I'm doing still connected to what I care about most? If not, no amount of hustle will save you. James taught high school history in Boston. For 15 years, he poured himself into his students. But somewhere around year 16, the joy drained out. The bell felt heavier. The faces in the classroom blurred. He thought maybe he was just tired. So he took a summer off. But when September came, nothing had changed. One day, he stayed after class with a student who was struggling, not with grades, but with believing in himself. In that moment, James realized, he didn't want to teach history anymore. He wanted to teach self-belief. A year later, James left the school. Now, he speaks at youth centers across the country, teaching kids how to rewrite the stories they tell themselves. He didn't lose motivation for teaching. He lost motivation for the frame it was trapped in. Step 1. Stop shaming the pause. It's not wasted time. It's compost for your next season. Step 2. Audit your why. Write down the real reason you started. If it doesn't light you up anymore, let it evolve. Step 3. Small, honest actions. Don't chase giant leaps on day 1. Send the email. Take the walk. Sketch the idea. Step 4. Protect the people who protect your fire. Spend time with those who remind you who you are when there's no scoreboard. In America, quitting is a dirty word. But here's the paradox. Every major transformation begins with quitting. You quit the job that drains you. You quit the identity that cages you. You quit pretending the goal still matters when it doesn't. And in that space, you make room for what's real. One day, without warning, you'll feel it again. The restlessness, the curiosity, the quiet excitement that hums in your bones. It might not look like the old fire. It might burn slower, steadier, but it will be yours. And when it comes, you'll know the truth. Losing your motivation wasn't the end. It was the invitation. The moment your old story ended, and your real story began.